Hi, this is Bill Punch. This is another video in a series of videos from Michigan State University covering the topic Introduction to Computer Science using Python CSE 231. Today we'll be doing more work with strings, in particular the topic of string formatting. And by formatting we mean making our default strings look better, providing better output for all of our programs. Let's go ahead and get started. The good news about Python is that there's a lot of simple defaults to do simple printing, and we've used those all along. What we're trying to do now is add more and more features so that we can better control how our strings are formatted, how they're laid out when they get printed. Like many things in Python, easy things are easy to do, but there are a lot of complex things that we can do as well, even though they might make things kind of difficult. String formatting, as it turns out, has a lot of potential complexity, even if we won't cover it all today. And if we were to go to the Python web page and look, we could find that when they talk about string formatting, they talk about a mini language, that it's complicated enough that it has its own kind of mini language associated with it. So just know that there's a lot of details that we could be covering. Let's just do a really simple one. Let's run this guy, talk about what we did. There's three parts to running this. The first is there's a regular string, just like there always was, and every element of this string is printed exactly as it always has been, in order as provided, except for these two elements that are curly bracket elements. And at those positions, we're going to provide new information and insert them in the string. We separate the string itself from the things that we're going to insert by a dot. And then we provide a format function method, really, to this string, and these elements in the format list are the things that we're going to put into our string. And how we do it is best shown with this little picture. We're going to say, if you don't say anything else inside of those curly brackets, the first element is going to be placed in the first curly bracket. The second element is going to be placed in the second curly bracket, and we're going to create a new string that looks exactly like that, which is exactly what we got. 5 went into the first, the string argument went into the second, created a new string. That's the basics, but where we get control is that there are a lot of features that we can provide inside of those curly brackets that tells us something about how those substitutions are going to go. I'll give you the quick rundown and we'll go back. We can decide which format element from that list of format stuff gets placed in. That's going to occur before the colon. If we don't say what format element, we're going to take things in order, just like we did when we did the first example. We can say how things are going to align in the middle, left justified or right justified, if the width of the string is larger than the thing we're trying to print. The default is left alignment. Width is how wide, how many spaces we're going to occupy when we do this printing. The default is just wide enough to cover the thing that we're trying to substitute in. For a floating point number, we can say something about the precision. That is how many elements are going to show up behind the decimal point with rounding, which is very nice. And then lastly, we can say something about the type that we're trying to put in to that element. And Python's kind of picky about that, so we have to be careful. Some of the elements that I just talked about. For alignment, we use left arrow, right arrow, or center arrow to say left, right, or center justified. For the types that we have to provide, we can say string, decimal, float, exponential, or percent. Let's use some of these in a slightly more complicated formatting string. Let me run it first, and then let's talk about what we did. I can show you with the picture. For each one of those formatting things in curly brackets, we said more than we did before. First of all, we put the colon in and we took the default ordering. We didn't give a format element, so that came in order. But for this particular substitution, we want it to be right justified, occupying 10 spaces, and it's going to be a string. For this element, again, the next element, we said the width is going to be 10 spaces. The default is left justified, and it's going to be a decimal. That's exactly what we got. We took the string Bill, and we substituted it in here for a total width of 10, right justified, so there's 6 spaces here. We then took the decimal number 25 and we substituted it in, right justified, 8 spaces there, made that whole string and printed it out. Better control. We can also select a format element, so if we put a number before the colon, then we're saying which of the format elements we want to use. They are numbered as anything else starting with 0, so the first element is 0, the second element is 1, and so on and so forth. So for this one, we're using the first element, 0 index, 3 times. We're saying the 0th element as a string, the 0th element as a string, the 0th element of the string. We're reusing this argument 3 times when we do the printing, and we get a new string. Floating point specification allows us to specify how wide the total floating point element is going to be, including the dot, and how many positions after the decimal point with rounding. So let's take a look at one. We're reusing the 0th element, right, 3 times. So we're reusing 3 times math.pi, the 0th element. We're saying that we're going to have it total spaces 8, and then 2 elements of the decimal point as a floating point number. So 3.14. We're going to say 10 total spaces, 4 after the decimal point, 3.16, 3.14159 rounded up. Or, and then this is interesting, I said use only 1 space, 2 behind the decimal point. If you don't give enough space, Python will automatically give you whatever space is required, just enough to fit the thing in that you're trying to do the work with. Lastly, this is a little beyond what we're doing now, but here's a set of pairs. We haven't said yet exactly how to do pairs, but each pair has 2 elements, a string and a score, and each one of these strings that pairs rather has. When we do the substitutions, then we're going to grab for the 0th position a string and the 2nd position, index 1, a score. So we're going to print out a header, and then we're going to print out for each of the pairs element 0 in the pair, position 0, element 0 the pair, the 2nd position, and print it out. And here we get a nice table. Notice that we right justified the numbers and left justified the names so that they would line up nicely under our table scores.